it to be have as little environmental impact as possible. In addition, the development that we're proposing is essentially infill development. We're in a neighborhood which is village, almost urban in density and scale. We're providing village-style development of the same density and scale. Typically, infill development is seen as being environmentally preferable to green field subdivision development. So, in terms of environmental impacts, we believe it's very favorable. The fifth item is health and safety, and that there be no negative impacts. The church community has been working with the town engineer, as was mentioned previously, and we believe that any kind of health and safety issues have been addressed. And again, that this is the same type of development that exists in the immediate vicinity, and there are no health and safety issues in that respect. The sixth item is adequate and permanent physical access to a public street. All three of these have access to Swinburne Street. And the seventh and last item is that the development will not result in creation of lots with physical constraints to development. All of these lots, as shown, have been designed to be able to site these three units on them and work well, we believe. So with that, I think.
Christian, I have two questions for you. With respect to the, I see that there are some of the neighbors who use the 10-foot way here, right? Is church community willing to enter into an agreement relating to the maintenance of the 10-foot way, that is in its current state, so that nothing is done to impede or block it, and that it would be maintained?
Yes, sir.
There is currently a corner of this 14,000 square foot lot, which will become the house, the existing house lot, where a corner of it is cut across by the neighbor who has to turn to the west to get onto her property. Is church community willing to maintain that historic corner?
Yes, sir.
I have a question on that, on the other end of that right of way. I was out there today and it's a peg actually right in the, sort of in the middle of it. Is the current right of way entirely on this property, or has it bled over onto the property next door historically at the Swinburne Street juncture?
Perhaps Mike would be better suited to
Probably answer that. The gravel area, I guess, that's being used, the traveled way, is probably mostly on the parcel to the east. The pin that you saw in the middle of that area is the east side of that 10-foot right-of-way. The westerly edge of that right-of-way is pretty much along the fence. There's actually a couple of pins there. There's about a 2-foot wide grass strip along the fence, that white picket fence like. But the right-of-way actually starts right along that picket fence. So it's wider than 10 feet, whatever they're using now and so forth, which has been there quite a long time. So the majority of it is actually on the other property, not where our property is. If they needed to widen that right-of-way, that traveled way, there would be a couple of feet on our property from the edge of the gravel, let's say, where the grass strip is, to where the fence is, that they could widen if they needed to for whatever reason. But the majority of that traveled way is actually on, I think it may be the same family that owns it, but it's that vacant lot to the east.
Right. Well, that was my question, of whether that was going to be something that, I mean, it sounds like you've got room to move it if you have to. Will there be an arrangement made with the property to the east about that, so it doesn't have to move, or will it be moved in the process of this development?
I guess I can't really speak for that. I can speak that there's a couple of feet from the edge of the gravel that's being used now to where our property actually begins. It is a 10-foot wide way. It's not huge when you think about, it's a small driveway.
No,
really,
it's
in
fine.
essence.
Just that the neighbors may want to know what will happen to that. And
Yeah, I can't speak for the the other side, because I believe it's a different owner and so forth.
Between the eastern edge of this 14,000 square foot, eastern side of this 14,000 square feet parcel, there is a 10-foot wide right of way.
Right.
And that's there, that exists, that's historic, that will be maintained. The other property owner can do what they want to do in concert with neighbors or not in concert with neighbors. But as far as church community is concerned, that 10-foot wide way that exists will continue to exist. And we are prepared to enter into an agreement, if requested, for the maintenance and governance of the agreement that way. It's important that some of you may be familiar with shared driveway situations. It's important that everybody who uses it understands that it cannot be blocked. And that if it is disturbed for any reason, for example, for a utility line, that it be restored as efficiently as promptly as possible. That if it has to have a load of gravel put on it, that there's a mechanism in place for the sharing of those costs. Church community is prepared to enter into that very simple and fair type of agreement when you have a shared driveway.
You also said that you would maintain the network fences.
Right now, there's an area, I think it's Mrs. Jeunesse property. She cuts across, it's a small triangle, maybe 3 or 4 feet on 2 sides. And church community is aware that that's there. The fence actually, the white picket fence actually follows it, and that can be maintained.
Will that be put into some sort of agreement? Or?
It's in the motion.
Actually, yeah, the new motion.
As a condition?
Yeah, that could,
You can look at it.
that could be put into an agreement. The maintenance agreement wouldn't have to have something like that, but we could put it on the plan attached to the maintenance agreement.
It's number 12 under the findings.
It's a finding.
Just so it's recognized that it's there.
It's recognized, okay, I'm wondering if it needs to be.
Well, I
I'm not proposing
when
that.
I spoke to the planner about that, we discussed on whether it should be a condition. My recommendation was, again, in looking at this issue, that the board can acknowledge the testimony of and the agreement of the applicant, but I did not recommend that the board get involved in placing conditions related to travelways or other properties or agreements between neighbors or how property is used between neighbors that doesn't necessarily impact the proposed development as it's being proposed.
I can tell you that I did prepare for my client to review a draft maintenance and governance agreement relating to it's a simple document, 1-page document. It will have attached to it a plan showing the right of way. And on that plan, there would be a cross-hatched area showing the area where Mrs. Jeunesse has to cross over this lot at the corner. And that's because it's a 10-foot wide way, and to make a turn, you need a little extra room.
Mr. Murphy, just back up a little bit and for the record, talk about the way and the right of way.
Yes,
Ownership. Where does the ownership lie? Or there is town ownership?
Is that a question to me or?
Well, to either.
Mr. Murphy.
Either.
It's not
Mr. Murphy's opinion, but.
Okay, because I haven't reviewed the
Okay.
ownership of the
So let me
way,
ask you-
I haven't reviewed the title documents.
I can share my notes with Wyatt, but it's not owned by the town. It was owned by a man named Arthur Knowles. This is the Knowles plat. And he granted to several property owners a right to use this way for access by carts. It was before there were automobiles, as access to their property. And that would be everybody who abuts it. In addition, there's a third property, I think, I forget the